All right, everyone, welcome on. We'll get started with the official podcast here momentarily as soon as I get my backup recording going. And then we'll get rolling. Had to take a night off from the live call today. However, it was still an awesome night, at least for one of the games.
Well, I mean, it was nice to have a light second game.
It was rather light. Okay, here we go. Well, a home team has finally won here in the second round, but it certainly was not the Boston Celtics. They blow another huge lead, this time 16 points in the fourth quarter, and end up losing by 91 to 90, a very Knicks-like score in the end, a 90s Knicks, like a number of senses of the word. What happened? This is just, it's incredible. The Celtics are down 0-2, and they've blown 20-point leads in both games and big fourth quarter leads in both games.
Peyton Pritchard made a three with 8:40 left in the fourth quarter that put the Celtics up 84-68. By my count from that point, and apologies if I got this wrong, but I went through it in the box score. The Celtics missed 13 straight shots from the field. And some of those were very, very good Knicks defense, to be abundantly clear. Many of them were not. Many of them, and they're always going to be business. No team is, other than maybe the Thunder for stretches of their game on Wednesday, is going to go 13 for 13. But that was an absolutely incredible swing. And the only shot that Boston made after the only field goal that Boston made after that was the wild Jason Tatum play where they basically ran the ball. They ran the ball full court, got a screen for Al Horford, and then no one picked up Tatum and he got a dunk, which crazily put Boston in the lead again, which they then gave up, of course.
We can talk about some of the aspects of the very end of the game and the strategy and all that. But and obviously the Celtics, we're hear numbers thrown around of like the Celtics shooting 15 points below expectation, and then 17 points even lower in this game than they were in the first game. And this is a great shooting team. Like, they're supposed to be shooting well. They were 10 out of 40 from three in this one after the 60 attempts in the first game. But, Knicks were only 9 out of 31 themselves. Boston actually had more offensive rebounds than the Knicks did, although not in the fourth quarter when the Knicks made their comeback. But my biggest takeaway is just that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just haven't been good enough at creating the advantage. And those guys aren't always going to shoot incredibly well. But they had 5 and 1 assists in this game. The New York Knicks were willing to actually just switch Jalen Brunson onto Jaylen Brown. They did it twice at the end of the game. Jaylen Brown came up with nothing both times. Jason Tatum, the Knicks went more now into a drop coverage with Karl Anthony Towns on him, but also like they are hedging with Jalen Brunson and just not really, you can't really get much of an advantage there. He hasn't been that effective in pick and roll. Like, he hasn't been doing enough as an individual scorer, because this is not, island basketball.
No.
Like what the Magic were playing. Like, even when the Knicks were switching more in game one, it wasn't island basketball. They're still maintaining their normal help principles. It's just that Tatum and Brown have not been able to be so effective as individual scorers that the Knicks have had to bring a significant level of help that's cracked things open. So that, to me, is my biggest takeaway, is like those two guys just haven't been able to open everything up for their teammates. Like, yeah, you know what? Horford is 0 for 5, and it'd be nice if Derek White is a little better than 3 for 11, and Pritchard was 3 and 9 for 3, but those guys weren't getting great shots to me. And then Tatum and Brown are missing their threes off the dribble. Tatum's really going through it, but he was 4 out of 14 from 2 as well. So I don't know, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I have a couple stats that can buttress your point there. So, and this isn't specifically on Brown and Tatum, but you think about the shots that Boston is generating and the shots they are and are not converting. In this game, the Celtics took 43 pointers. 35 of those were above the break, and 5 of those were corner threes. They went 1 for 5 from the corner three. So they're not generating those shots either. And then the other one that I think is wild is so the Celtics were a completely good, better than average 16 of 21 in the restricted area. The percentage wise, it's better than average. And they had more attempts there than Knicks. And the Celtics took a few more free throws than Knicks, though, for that could have shifted if their Haka strategy had gone slightly differently. On twos outside the restricted area, the Boston Celtics were 8 of 33 in this game. And I thought that was really telling because those were some of the shots that the Knicks were conceding. And they're conceding those at times to some of Boston's better scorers. And it's not like you're leaving the right ones open necessarily from that perspective. And the Celtics, the threes are going to be part of the session, but their 2-point conversion was horrendous.
And it really has been the Celtics getting dragged down into the mud. And again, I put it on Tatum and on Jaylen Brown. The biggest thing I would say is they're just going too slow. When they get the matchup, they're just not being decisive enough. Tatum, I thought the last couple of years, when he would get the ball against a mismatch in the post, he would catch it and then just go for this immediate quick spin. It was probably the best move that he had. Hasn't been doing that at all. He's been really surveying the defense, wants to work in a position. Is that fatigue? Maybe is it, he's just worried that the Knicks are going to have too many bodies there if he doesn't survey things first. But this is a Tom Thibodeau defense. Like, they're going to overload. They're going to be there. The more time you give them to get in a position, like, they know where they're supposed to help. They're very well drilled. They're not going to make mistakes. The Celtics certainly aren't making them make mistakes. Like, God forbid they could get a single system bucket with a guy slipping back door or something like that, or maybe like a guy coming off a screen, right? Like maybe you could set an off-ball screen with Karl Anthony Towns or Mitchell Robinson's man for Derek White, like one of the best shooters in the NBA. Something along those lines. Like, they don't do really much off the ball stuff at all. It's all just pick and roll, get the mismatch, and like, they got to come up with something else here because those guys have to start playing better and going faster. I think it's a combination of the two. It's no coincidence that the one decent play, or I would say the two decent plays that they got in the last minute, were Tatum getting a screen way up high, going at Karl Anthony Towns, which they should have done more, especially if Towns was going to be in more of a drop and not switching as much. And so they went fast and Tatum got up ahead of steam, and they're trying to go from a standstill against a set defense. And like, especially Jaylen Brown in his current condition, where he's, even in game one, when he was going well, he's taking a lot of mid-rangers. Like, he's not able to physically overwhelm guys. He doesn't have that same suddenness off the dribble. He's really only displayed that, I think, in game two against the Magic. And maybe, he kind of wore himself out there with this knee issue, but yeah, those guys have got to be better. And the general lack of anything that they can do to like put the defense into a miscommunication or anything along those lines has been pretty galling. And also, I mean, we got to credit the Knicks defense.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the Knicks defense has been very good. Like, yeah, the Celtics would probably normally hit a few more shots than they have. But as much as you want to say, oh, the Celtics shot quality, blah, blah, like, you can't tell me that you're watching the Boston Celtics play in these games and be like, oh, yeah, they're just getting great shots left and right. They're just missing them. Like, yeah, there's a few of those here and there, but not like most possessions are pretty sloggy.
They are. And there are a lot of different challenges. Just so we have it out there, the Knicks had an 81.9 half-court offensive rating. That dwarfs that is just significantly higher than the Celtics 70.9 half-court offensive rating. And
Wow.
it's incredible. And the Celtics were able to get on the offensive glass, though, as you said, that wasn't really the case in the fourth quarter. Just so we have that part of it out there. So the Celtics, in the fourth quarter, they missed 19 shots, but they only got 5 of those offensive rebounds. I believe that as well, with it what below the rate that they had. They were I think they were in like the 30s for most of the game. And yeah, they were 32.8 for the full game. So they were definitely below that in the fourth. And when you consider the opportunities were there, and it's the Knicks, they're playing disciplined. And I mean, I think they're also getting an understanding. And I mean, I don't know how much we're going to go possession by possession through this game, but I think that the last Celtics possession was indicative of this, where like Tatum, that one was a little bit more extreme, but Tatum takes forever to get into it and then just kind of keeps on flowing. And the Knicks just realize, oh, we could just send more guys here. He's not going to make the pass. And then he does sort of make the pass, but then Mikal Bridges just steals it.
Yeah. Now, that said, the Knicks did a great job of jamming it up. They kind of,
oh, yeah.
The Celtics kind of ran the same thing again, trying to go full court. It was obvious when they were going full court that it's going to be the same thing again. And OG Anunoby on that last play does a great job of not getting too high up the floor so he could be screened. Mitchell Robinson was in there too, helped zone up and then actually switched onto Tatum. And then I thought the Celtics spacing was very bad. Al Horford didn't pick and pop. He instead rolled to the basket. I guess the thinking being that if you made it flat, then you couldn't bring the help on Tatum. But then Tatum tried to drive. He drove towards the side that Jaylen Brown was on. Derek White, their best shooter, is just like he started on the left wing and just jogged under the basket and was just standing there so Josh Hart could easily rotate onto Horford. Horford then tried to grab the shit out of the arm of OG Anunoby, who I just credit OG. He didn't flop. He's just like, nah, this is my fucking arm. You can't grab my arm. And he just went over there, forced Tatum to continue to just float towards the left baseline. And then Bridges came off of Jaylen Brown, not exactly Mr. Shooting Threat these days, and blocked him from behind. And you saw Mikal Bridges made the key defensive stop right at the end, 2 games in a row, which is very satisfying for him. What else did you have during the meat of the game?
So I thought in the early going that Boston's defensive pressure was much better. I thought they were, because the Knicks, it was harder for them to get into their stuff. I mean, the Knicks only scored 91 points in this game, and that made a difference. And the other thing that I was really interested in early was Kristaps Porzingis, and he was available. He did play 14 minutes, but I thought at first that it was just going to be that he wasn't going to play at all because Luke Kornet came in before Porzingis, and so Horford started. Kornet came in before Porzingis, and then when Porzingis came in, he had some moment, offensively, he hit a couple of shots.
Yeah, he hit his first bucket of the series. He had like an 8-point run in, I think it was the third quarter. He hit like a pretty tough 3, got an offensive rebound and got a and one dunk.
But
he didn't contribute much other than that.
Yeah, and I didn't
-9.
I didn't think he was great defensively, and it might take him some time. I mean, we don't know exactly what the illness was, but I hope it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, he just hasn't been any good in the last month, honestly. Like just the entire playoffs. So again, like, was this an illness that was kind of building? Like, he did come back in this one, but I mean, he just and not having him is a big problem for the Celtics. Like, he really killed the Knicks in the 2 regular season games, and Al Horford is, especially with his defensive load, like, could be wearing down. And Porzingis hasn't been a massive force at the rim yet defensively. Like, he's been outplayed defensively by Luke Kornet by quite a bit. Kornet's actually been pretty good, although, you don't want to get stuck with him too much because I think he can start to be exploited. But yeah, Porzingis not being another guy who you really trust to do anything against mismatches. Like, he had another post up at the nail that, hey, this is going to shock you, Danny. He held the ball for 4 seconds, tried to rip through, then took one dribble. He, I think, covered about 4 millimeters with that dribble, and then tried to go up through the guy's arm over his right shoulder and missed the free throw line jumper. I've never seen him do that before, but
Yeah, now's as good a time as any to talk about Mitchell Robinson's free throw attempts.
Well, I mean, first off, we have to say, and Joe Mazzulla noted this after the game. He said they asked him any regrets on the hack Mitch. He's like, "Nah, the dude was plus 19 in 22 minutes. Like all their starters were negative. Like we need to get him out of there." I will confess that KP sent me a message, and I was maybe like 5 minutes behind on the game when he sent it to me. Uh, he said that may be the worst free throw attempt in NBA history, and I knew it had to be Mitch, obviously. And so then once he got that and run, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be exciting." And then
so
it certainly was.
so the funny thing for me is the easier way for me to do it was I went back on Synergy and watched the first time I've ever gone back to watch a free throw attempt because it was so bad. It was rough.
Yeah,
And
but he also like his defense has
oh
caused
yeah.
problems for the Celtics. Like they are not really willing to challenge him around the rim. He did have a big offensive rebound. He did have that and one, even if the basket he scored counted, even if the free throw was pretty bad. But when they even thought of going Hackimich, he wasn't even left in to try. He only took the one free throw. And Tom Thibodeau
Well,
took
it
him
was
out. But then Robinson was great at the start of the fourth when they weren't in the bonus, and was a big reason why the Celtics really struggled to score it on the end.
Well, and I thought one potentially hilarious thing that could have happened was so the Celtics in the fourth quarter, when they were doing the intentional fouls, one of the people who fouled was Al Horford. Al Horford ended up with 4 fouls, like it because he got one shortly thereafter. It would have been incredible if he fouled out because it was committing the intentional fouls. That's part of what you're trying to avoid. But yeah, I thought Robinson was a difference maker, and Missoula that the intention of Haka most of the time is to get that player off the floor, and it did work to that effect. But Mitchell
Yeah.
Robinson
Now,
was
Mitch, his free throw shooting is so bad that you probably can't countenance it. Now, of course, the NBA should get rid of this rule. There's no reason why. Just like you're always allowed to lane violate. Uh, like there's, and you can't do that in any other league. You can't do this intentional foul bullshit in any other league of basketball in the world. I know it's just so scintillating that, well, I mean, all those other leagues, right? Like people, uh, it's an entertainment product, right? Like but the NBA, that's really about just like hardcore fundamental basketball, right? Like
oh
the NBA is, a youth league basically. So, if we don't teach people how to shoot their free throws, then, when they get to the higher levels, then it'll be a really bad product, right? That's the
they
thinking.
thank you for leaving the perfect transition into there being 2 dunks taken away in this game because of charges. And Jalen Brunson went in and took one away from Jalen Brown. Again, there's also an injury risk here. And then OG actually completes the dunk, and Derek White draws the charge on him. It is completely ludicrous. The charge circle, like there are a number of fixes. You and I have talked about it, but it's it's so preposterous that this hasn't been fixed yet.
Yeah, just like why is anyone against just moving the charge circle out a little bit? Like players are obviously more athletic now than they were in the past. Like they that and at the NBA, I think has a larger charge circle than college or some of the other levels for that reason. Like if a guy can complete a dunk while a charge is taken, it's too close. Like, okay, Jalen Brown, he couldn't finish it, and he maybe it was just a wild play, but once the guy is athletic enough to take off and dunk, and and the charge is not being taken far enough out that he can complete the dunk, like that's we've seen a number of these. We saw Anthony Edwards on Gabe Vincent was another one. Like NBA, if you want there to be awesome dunks and awesome highlights, this is what you use to market yourself. You trumpet your billions of social media views. It's a lot less interesting on social media if it ends up being a charge. Like the announcers are going crazy. Oh, unbelievable dunk. So awesome. Well, I guess it was a charge. Like nobody wants that. Who like, I mean, there are always the curmudgeons in my mentions who want that, who love watching guys fall down in front of other people. But just all I wanted to do is just get there a little earlier, make them do it further out. And that will also cut down on so many injuries because at least you're not letting guys get airborne if it's
Yeah.
further out.
It's another way that they're endangering airborne players.
Karl Anthony Towns was fantastic scoring inside the arc. Of course, didn't get up any three-pointers. The Celtics strategy has taken that away. And Jason Tatum has been pretty good defensively in this series, despite the fact that he hasn't had his offense and the fact that he also has been, had a really high usage. So he's still playing very hard, but Karl Towns was able to get into the paint, particularly in the first, and that was the only thing keeping the Knicks remotely close as they scored 13 first quarter points.
Towns, I thought he was big in the first quarter. But also he had a nice stretch in the second when the Knicks were scoring better, but they were still struggling. And in the first, there were a couple where like he was in the interior, got one where he got an offensive rebound and a putback, and then had another one of those in the second quarter. Yeah, I thought that he was the best offense that the Knicks had during the first half. And there are a lot of times, a team has a late comeback. It's also worth taking the time to appreciate the people who left them in position to make the comeback. And I thought Karl Anthony Towns was an important part of that story. In the first half, he was 6 of 11 from the field, 14 points. Yeah, it's below 50%, but like the team as a whole couldn't make a shot at all. So Towns doing that was really important, and he largely stayed out of foul trouble. I cracked up that immediately after the intentional fouls in the second quarter, because the Celtics did it. I remember it twice. There might have been a third time. So Thibodeau pulled Mitchell Robinson right before they would have gotten to free throws, and then Towns comes in, immediately commits a foul, and I'm like, oh god, if the trade off is that you get Towns in foul trouble, but he largely did avoid that.
I should probably turn my camera on. Forgot about that. We're in like total podcast mode here.
You had yours off, so I had mine off.
Yeah, no, I figured that's what it was. Oh. Good question here from Get Up With It. Would you say there are any specific changes from either team to cause the Celtics scoring drought in the fourth quarter? I'll start with this. I thought Tom Thibodeau again coached a very good game, and I was like, man, like they can't score here at the start of the fourth. They've got both Brunson and Towns off the floor. But Mikal Bridges had not scored in the first three quarters of the game, and he scored 14 points in the fourth. They thought it was 13, and then they changed his long two to a 3. And so they ran everything through him right away. And I was like, right, they're going to come back one Mikal Bridges mid-ranger at a time. But they actually got him going early in that quarter. And then they also had Mitchell Robinson in there too. And I think just having those two bigs and then not having Jalen Brunson to go after. Let me double check exactly what that lineup was at the start of the fourth. But I think they put a pretty good defensive group out there, if memory serves. So
it was Bridges, Towns, Anunoby, and then I think Brunson.
I've got it. Yeah. So it was McBride, Robinson, Hart.
That's it. Yeah.
Anunoby and Towns came in actually. Maybe I guess he was in. I apologize. I just had that wrong in my notes. But in any event, that group did really well. The double big alignment was very good, and they held up pretty well defensively. I think also the fact that I don't know that they did that much more differently, other than the double bigs. Like I didn't think they did. They're pretty consistent strategically throughout, in my recollection. So I think that was. They did get on the offensive glass more, which helped a lot. And that when they did miss, because the Knicks offense wasn't like so awesome in the quarter, but they got a lot of offensive rebounds. And Josh Hart was really good there. Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns had that and one. I mean, interestingly enough, for a Tom Thibodeau team, his team was much fresher than the Boston Celtics were. They clearly, like the Celtics were getting more 50-50 balls throughout the first half or so, but the Knicks, and a lot of those guys played fewer minutes, the Knicks actually got more of those balls in the fourth. And they also just defended really well one-on-one, and there wasn't much in terms of like play calling for the Celtics that was going to give someone an advantage other than just, all right, maybe we'll run a double screen with Brunson at the end this time. That was like about as complex as it got in my view. Again, I didn't rewatch the whole fourth, but there certainly wasn't much that I saw in the last bit.
No, I didn't
Spain
either.
says, should they go
Go
to
ahead.
more stuff like Drew posting up Brunson? I would think about that. They tried Drew as the ball handler because that's obviously who Brunson is guarding. And maybe they should try to do more of that. But Drew, I just don't know how good he can be as a pick and roll ball handler at this point. I think that would work a little bit better when it's Towns out there.
Mhm.
But especially doing Drew as the pick and roll ball handler, and then a Horford pick and pop or a Porzingis pick and pop, if you can get Town or whoever Towns is guarding, should be capable of doing that. So I would probably think about that, but Drew just hasn't really been asked to do that. I don't know if he has that in his game anymore with the Celtics. They really only run, I think, two that I can recall and Drew made a bad decision on one of them in game one where he pulled up for a three when they got the mismatch of Tatum on Brunson. Tibbs saved his job. The Knicks need to win. We'll see. I mean, if they lose four straight and get completely blown out, sometimes when you play well, it raises expectations, and when you eventually play poorly or just revert to the mean, it can feel almost more deflating. But no, I mean he's done a pretty good job so far. You can't say that he's coached bad games at the end of the game or anything like that. Their clutch record has been fucking ridiculous in these playoffs.
I still have the feeling that another coach could be useful for the Knicks, but I think that it seems unlikely that Leon Rose would fire him after what has already happened. You're right that
Yeah.
we don't know how it ends, but I think that it would be unlikely at this point.
Are you going to talk about the end of the game here?
Yeah, let's do it. Where do you want to pick things up?
Well, just a few plays I probably want to highlight as we
Mhm.
go through. Celtics are still up by 10 with 5 minutes left. They've already had a drought of 4 minutes or something like that. They ended up, I think, missing how
It
many
was
straight shots did they miss?
it was
12?
13. It was 13.
13 straight shots. Also, when they took a 20-point lead with 3:12 remaining in the third quarter, 5 of 28 from the field, 17.9%, 2 of 14 from three, 6 turnovers in that period of time. Pretty terrible offense. And again, I will credit the Knicks, OG Anunoby getting through screens, Jason Tatum not really able to score on him, which I think we kind of knew, but we just figured there would be, he'd run pick and roll and it would be fine.
Well,
Yeah.
I cracked up because going back to when Brad Stevens coached the team, I had this running joke about how the Celtics, the guy was either always being guarded by the best or the second best defender on the other team. That seemed like the only screen that they would ever do. And they got back to that a little bit. I mean, at times they did get somebody, but I think in this game, it wasn't as much the lack of aggression. It was that OG was just getting through a lot.
Yeah, he was fantastic defensively. So they're still up 10. Miss 3. Josh Hart beats Derek White to the rebound. Derek White just didn't box him out. And kicks out to Brunson for a 3. Dean Oliver had this crazy stat that on the season, Jalen Brunson was shooting 64% on second chance threes. And he was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't run down after you challenge it. Although there was a later play where Brunson kind of stuck his leg out, tried to fall down and get a 3-shot foul, fell down, and then they threw it ahead to Derek White for a foul. So it did kind of even out a little bit on that. That was not a foul, by the way. I was not. Reggie Miller thinks everything is a foul, particularly anything involving a shooter and particularly involving any shooter who sticks his leg out because he was the master at that 35 years ago. There were a couple of missed wide open threes by Brown in Tatum and in semi-transition. Brown coming off a screen, going to his left. Nobody in front of him. He decided to take the three. You mentioned that they were shooting very poorly on long twos, but also Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson were both in the paint on that play. And Jaylen Brown has not been shooting well, and then taking a three off the dribble lowers the percentage even more. And then Tatum in transition had an open three in the corner, but he was so open that he could have potentially attacked. And that was at the point, I think, where they had already taken Robinson off the floor and he just decided to take that open three. And that's what the Celtics do. Like, if you're going to, that's the decision you've made all year. You need to do what is in your muscle memory. You can't overthink it. Like, that's what you've been coached to do. That's what you always do. You get a wide open three in transition, you take it. Peyton Pritchard hit some huge ones in the second quarter on that. And maybe it was actually, I think it was the third quarter. So those were just killers, though. Like, those were like the wide open ones where they had a pretty decent process.
Yeah,
any other plays from like sort of the end of that Knicks comeback stood out to you?
Well, I think it was in the middle of it. But so Josh Hart had a turnover. Tatum stole a pass, and then he took a three. That one wasn't rapid fire transition. That was another one, and Bridges eventually got three. But that they were kind of hemorrhaging points, and I was like, oh, like maybe you could have gotten a better shot there too.
Yeah, another play that stood out to me is they try to run pick and roll at Brunson. OG goes under. Again, like the inability to make that three off the dribble. And the Knicks had some success with this against Cade too. And they're just like, yeah, you know what? If you're going to take that three off the dribble after the hedge, you know, that's the shot we're willing to give up rather than switching Brunson onto the guy. Although they certainly were willing to switch Brunson onto Jaylen Brown. And Missoula went back to the same play of that after Brown got pretty good position on Brunson, but just missed about a 6-footer. But there was no one there to help. Again, Robinson's out of the game at this point. So he went back to the same thing, and Brown tried to draw the foul. He missed it. And then the Tatum one I was talking about earlier, he comes over the screen. OG goes under. So no real advantage. OG gets back in front. He never really got screened. And then Tatum just decides to go at him one-on-one and ends up with a really difficult right baseline fadeaway. And you just got to acknowledge, hey, you know what? Like, this guy is one of the 5 best isolation defenders in the league. I'm not that good of an isolation player. And how about we just rescreen? We got 12 on the shot clock. We don't have to go right now. All right. We didn't get an advantage. Just do it again. And then do it again. And
or let somebody else try. I mean, that's the whole beauty of the Celtics system is that they have all these different capable attackers.
And the other thing too, again, this is with the not going fast enough aspect. Just kind of take it easy, come off the screen. He goes under, and then he gets right back in position. Like, as soon as the screen happens, hit the accelerator and like really make him struggle, because that's where another one of your advantages if he goes under is it's hard to get back in front of the guy if he really decides to go. And maybe as I said, the juice wasn't there or whatever, but Brunson hit a couple of really difficult shots. One, just a one-leg step back on Drew Holiday. The Knicks fans definitely showed up. Like, you could hear them chanting defense. And when the Celtics were on offense, that was pretty awesome, I thought. So then Brunson pushes it up. He did this, remember, in the Detroit series too. It was game 3, where after kind of a deflating miss, it's a 1-point game. He drives up the left side. There are 3 Celtics back, but no one specifically picks him up. No other Knicks are even trying to join him. And he just goes and he gets a beautiful right-handed finish over Al Horford. That was like old school Jalen Brunson, who is shooting like 73% at the rim with the Mavericks type of finish. And I was just really impressed by that attack. And then the Celtics, Jalen Brunson has flown into the cameras. He's down, and 3 Celtics are just like, let's see how many times we can let the ball bounce before we inbound it.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Oh.
Yeah. So, and that's, we talked about the Pacers yesterday. Like, that's why this Pacers group is so hard to play against, because they would never do that. They would never do that because it's in their DNA. You just inbound the ball as fast as you fucking can every single time. And particularly if someone on the other team just shot a layup, make or miss, you are going. You have a 5-on-4.
Yeah,
if they do that.
You brought up muscle memory before. That's the Pacers' muscle memory as opposed to the Celtics' muscle
Yep.
memory of
And the
just dribble,
Celtics
dribble,
muscle
dribble.
memory is, probably 5 years of the Bill Simmons clogged toilet offense that was first instituted under Doc Rivers that he used to complain about. So yeah, and that's also, I think, not having a point guard who really like pushes the ball either. Like they don't have a traditional point guard in that way. But they did actually end up getting something decent there once they allowed Brunson to just jog back into position where Tatum got fouled, hit 2 huge free throws to cut it to 2. Brunson airballs a 3, and then the Celtics did bring it full with 24 seconds left. Tatum gets that dunk. So then the Knicks came back. Drew Holiday is on Brunson. They tried to screen for him. He got over the screen beautifully. They tried to involve Horford in the pick and roll. Holiday was there, and he just kept going for the steal.
It was
And
bizarre.
And obviously Drew Holiday is one of the greatest defenders of all time. And Drew Holiday has an unbelievable resume of crunch time steals, especially when they're ahead. He's got the one that led to the alley-oop to Giannis. He had one in this building against Marcus Smart in Game 5 in 2022 against the Celtics. Like he made so many clutch defensive plays, but he just kept going for the steal and not getting it. And I don't even know if he fouled him on the last one, although he didn't complain. But he just like kept reaching. He definitely fouled him before Brunson went up. And so that's one of those things where the referees were like, they don't want to call it. But if you do it 3 times, they're like, okay, I can't let him get away with continuing to foul the guy like this. And so he just fouled him and also he just let Brunson get past him to begin with because he was gambling as well. And then he was out of position and then he just kept reaching and kept hacking it. Like Brunson didn't really even have to do anything on that play other than just
stay solid,
not get the ball stolen.
Yeah, it was the original getting behind that was really bewildering to me. And Drew Holiday is a fantastic defender. He deserves the benefit of the doubt, but it was surprising to me. And then Brunson, of course, gets those 2 free throws. And then the other decision in this point that I thought was interesting, and stop me if you've heard this before. You and I had a discussion after Game 1 of should Joe Mazzulla use a timeout? And I think my answer in this case is actually very similar to that one, which was, so they went no timeout, down 1 with 12 seconds to go. I'm okay with that, even though it's not like a foul up 3 or anything like that. But even if you start that way, because they had gotten some good stuff going downhill, as soon as Tatum started meandering in the lane, I think it would be good coaching to call a timeout, be like, we're not getting anything right now. Maybe we get something. So I don't know if that would have been about 5 seconds to go, 6 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, once range. he put the ball, so Robinson switches onto him. Then he put the ball on the floor to try to get into the lane. And the spacing was terrible. Like that's the biggest thing that I can point to. But Joe Mazzulla knows that Tom Thibodeau is a good coach. And he also, that was part of the thinking, I'm sure, in doing that same play. Did Tibbs call a timeout after the Tatum dunk?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So maybe they talked about that in the huddle if they did score.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there was a free throw too to kind of get the message
across. And the Knicks defensive subs were already in the game, so it wasn't like calling a timeout would allow them to shift their personnel.
Well, and here's the other reason to not call timeout. This is actually 100% the reason. Brunson was shooting the free throws. That's why they didn't.
Oh, but to keep him in. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Because they would have just taken him out. That's
why. McBride, Robinson was in, but McBride was not. That's correct.
Yeah. Now, of course, they didn't actually go at Brunson, so it ultimately didn't matter. But so yeah, I think that's about all I have on the end of the game. I do think a better play, not doing the same play. I guess one other thing too. Reggie Miller said, well, hey, if you're Joe Mazzulla, you got to think about sending someone at Jalen Brunson here because he's like such a clutch player at the end. Joe Mazzulla just does not believe in that. And of course they have personnel that can back that up. And in the end, I don't think that like it was because Jalen Brunson was just so unstoppable is the reason they lost the game. Like they allowed 91 points. Their defense was good enough, and particularly their first shot defense was good enough. They had one miscommunication down the end where two guys, the Knicks ran an ATO that they often run, where Brunson will be the inbounder, and then he sprints to the opposite corner for a three. Two Celtics went with him to the corner. He caught the ball and then found Hart on a roll. That led to the Karl Anthony Towns and one putback when Hart rolled to the basket. But other than that, it's not like they were just getting carved up or anything. They made him hit some tough shots. Like their offense just needed to be better. But would there be something to at least changing up a little bit, just a few different looks every now and then, just to make the Knicks think about something else? Maybe not even do it in crunch time, but just to do it a little more. I guess they never even practiced that stuff, so probably not.
I think it would be worth getting it in the back of Jalen Brunson's mind that they could be doing something different, but I don't think I would do it in crunch time. I think crunch time, you kind of stick to what your guys are comfortable with, and Boston has the talent to do what they're doing. And I didn't think, especially considering the Knicks were able to get transition and the Celtics weren't, because the Celtics were missing shots every single time, that part of it was too bad. I mean, as you mentioned, the Knicks in this game, their half-court offensive rating was at 82. It's not like that was the problem. And even as they got some stuff in the fourth, like it still wasn't like brilliant half-court offensive process. Like the Celtics did fine. If their offense had been even slightly passable, they would have been okay to win the game. But
and one thing I'll add there too is a lot of the Knicks players, Bridges, Anunoby, even Towns to some degree with his three-pointer, Hart, those guys can thrive a lot more if you are doubling Brunson and then getting the defense in rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are all much better with someone flying at them, and so to just not have to rotate really would help a lot. Sorry, I interrupted you. What else were you gonna say?
No, it's fine. I was gonna shift to big picture, but if you have more smaller stuff.
Yeah, a couple other things. Josh Hart, 23 points, 3 offensive rebounds, 3 assists, 9 of 15 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. But fine. Not a problem at all for me. First of all, it's in 43 minutes. And we saw what the Knicks' overall half-court offense was like. And so, yeah, you know what? You guard him with the center. He might do a few things. But what was the overall? Like, he didn't make us pay enough. Like, yeah, he can have a nice individual game, but it's all about what the team offense does. And that was definitely, I think, in Boston's favor. Like, they still almost pulled this out with their defense. Yeah, let's go big picture here.
How much trouble are the Celtics in?
I predict they're going to win the next 2 games.
I think they are in less trouble than the Cavs, because the Cavs have, Porzingis is definitely concerned, but the Cavs have these other, Garland's not back yet.
And also I think the Pacers are better than the Knicks too. Now, there is something about the Knicks where they always play close games. It seems like they just, in these playoffs, they don't blow anyone out. They don't get blown out. Every single game they've played has ended up being close. But let's also keep in mind the Celtics have been up by 20 points in the second half of both of these games. And they have killed the Knicks this season. Like, that hasn't totally gone away. I think Tom Thibodeau has done a great job, and the Knicks individual defenders have done a great job, Brunson and Towns in particular, and Anunoby getting over screens, of executing. And I would also say the Celtics creators are not great, and Porzingis is not doing that well either at this point. But the Celtics have kind of been better on the road in the playoffs traditionally, and they have no trouble going on the road. Didn't they have some unbelievable road record this year too? Weren't they almost as good on the road as at home? I'll have to look that up in a second. They're 28-13 at home, so they actually had a better road record.
They were 33-8 on the road, 28-13 at home.
And you do see that sometimes, like some of the Warriors teams have been like that too, where particularly in uh, situations like this where they're just battle tests, like they're not going to be bothered by the environment in MSG or anything like that. So I think like I favor the Celtics in the next two games. Maybe that's foolish to say they're going to win both of them, but also like their backs are up against the wall here. Like they have to win both of them. They have also, as largely this group, been in a situation down in a series before. They almost were the first team to come back from down 3-0, and they got two of the three that they got on the road. So this series is not even close to over to me. It could be a nice comeback. The Celtics have also the only guy who's still left from that team was Jaylen Brown, but in 2017 they lost the first two games at home as the 1 seed against the 8 seeded Bulls, and then won 4 straight. I don't know that we're headed there. This Knicks team still has a lot of talent, and if it's close, I think they've shown that they are pretty darn good executing the clutch all season. You don't want to count on that, but I definitely believe in Jalen Brunson to get a decent shot more than I do Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown at this point in time.
Not only do I trust Brunson to generate it, I trust him to convert it more, which are separate things but related things.
Yeah.
And
also he's not going to have 6 turnovers like Jaylen Brown did either. But I mean, the Celtics have shot under 30% from 3 in both these games. Like, do you think that's going to continue? It seems unlikely. Like, even with these shots, if they just hit 30% from 3, they win both these games pretty easily. Now, the Knicks didn't shoot that well either, but I didn't think that their looks were so awesome. And the Celtics are a great shooting team. So they got a lot of work to do. They definitely need to up the pace some as well. And they need to get more out of Porzingis or just stop playing him. I actually would try to get more Cornet out there in the matchups where it makes sense. The Hack-a-Mitch, I would stick with that. So I don't think that they're that far away, but they also are not necessarily going to change their stripes. So they just got to do what they do better. That's what Joe Mazzulla largely believes in. But what they do is an amazing formula. But if they lose this next game, I mean, I still wouldn't say it'd be impossible for them to win, even if they go down 3-0, unless they just get like totally blown out or someone gets injured or something. But this team, just like the 23 Nuggets, just like the 21 Bucks, had a very easy path to the championship. And
I was thinking about that during this game.
Yeah, go on.
Well, so I mean, the Celtics had this. They had they've been a strong team for a long time, and they made the 22 finals, but they had a lot of series where they either were the superior seed or it seemed like they had a talent advantage, and either they won it but things were harder than they needed to be, or they just straight up blew it throughout their series. And it I'm not saying all of those were chokes. I'm not saying anything like that. And we're not going to relitigate all of this stuff, but I had forgotten. I was actually talking about it with my wife during the game, how much that title made me forget that I had that perception before it. And the clog toilet offense and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh yeah. And I mean, they ran roughshod through the East last year, but they ran roughshod through teams that were already torn down due to injuries.
Yeah. I mean, even that Pacers series, they did win 4-0, but that was way more than a struggle than it should have been with Halliburton missing most of the series.
Yeah.
And Dallas, I think that was a pretty good matchup for them. They had a good formula against Luka, and they spaced the floor well enough that the rim protection didn't bother them too much. Oh yeah, there's one other thing strategically in this game that just struck me. When Cornet is in the game, Celtics go to more of a drop. And they even were doing that some with Horford too. They didn't want to switch Horford onto Brunson as much this game. They were going to just trust Jrue Holiday to get through the screen. He did a great job. Brunson was 6 of 19. And I don't even think Brunson was getting much separation, even with the few shots that he hit late. One pick and roll that Mikal Bridges ran at the start of the fourth, Jrue Holiday was guarding Brunson on the left side of the floor. Bridges runs the pick and roll. And so he likes to go to his right and shoot a mid-ranger. So they set the screen. There's like a little bit of a reaction by the center just to kind of slow Bridges from going all the way to the rim. And then Drew Holiday runs all the way from the opposite wing across the free throw line to pick up Mikal Bridges so he can't shoot his mid-ranger. And Mikal Bridges, to his credit, actually saw what was happening, which is a weird rotation. I have not seen that happen before. Certainly not a guy go that far out of his area, and particularly off the Knicks star.
Yeah.
And so Bridges saw what was happening. He looped a pass all the way to the other side, but then Derek White, who was initially on Mikal Bridges, he just peel switched onto Brunson, and because the pass looped way up in the air, he was able to get there easily. But that was, I mean, that's what we're doing now in pick and roll coverage. Like, fuck, this is like, I mean, I don't know if that's going to become something that happens a lot, but I was like, wow, all right, that is extreme. That is interesting. So I guess I shouldn't be critical of Joe for not changing up. But I mean, you think about all these series. How many of these series have just had like a big, just playing a normal pick and roll coverage? It's like everybody is doing something different. It's zone, it's switching. It's like the number of times that there's just like a big and a drop coverage is like pretty rare. Like even Rudy Gobert like never played drop coverage in the first round. It's remarkable like what a different animal the playoffs are. And when people complain about there being too much offense, like there's not too much offense in these playoffs. Like these playoffs have been, I would say, perfect. Unless we're talking about the next game we're about to get to here.
Yes, because the Denver Nuggets tied the NBA playoff record for most points in any half and set the record for most points in a first half.
I think you mean points allowed there, buddy, because the Oklahoma City Thunder were
switch the
we're the ones who scored the
was
it 87 points, or was it 80?
It was 87. They scored 87, and they put up a 167.3 offensive rating during the first half and absolutely ran roughshod over the Denver Nuggets. And it was a mixture of different things. I thought they were able to force turnovers, get out in transition. They were just wreaking havoc out there, but also they were hitting threes. Remember that the Thunder I believe they started out game 1 0 for 10. They ended up getting closer to their normal there, but it was an incredible display by them. And I don't think that this is the new equilibrium for this series, but it was closer to what I expected the Thunder's, the havoc I expected the Thunder's defense to potentially play.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when this was what every big favorite who lost game 1 at home did in game 2. Obviously, this is a rather extreme version of it, but it was pretty incredible. Nikola Jokic fouled out on 2 straight offensive fouls in the third quarter where they're already down by 40. It was, and I mean, honestly, he should have just fouled himself out earlier just to get himself a little bit of rest. This was the Nuggets did win game 1. I thought this highlighted what an awful missed opportunity this was for Oklahoma City in game 1. But this was a just absolute beatdown. The only Nugget who had a pulse in this game was Russell Westbrook, and even he fell off eventually and finished up negative 30. Like he had a few nice left-handed layups and made a few plays defensively and got to the foul line for 8 out of 10, started getting booed. He tried to like get involved and like got a technical to try to fire his team up. There was no firing up the Denver Nuggets in this one, and Oklahoma City was certainly quite fired up.
Yeah.
Themselves.
So something that I really appreciate about the Thunder from this game, brought it up in game 1, and I thought they went away from it in the fourth quarter, was bringing extra people, extra looks at Jokic. And I thought in game 1, it wasn't Hartenstein and Holmgren. They did fine, but it was everything else that caused chaos. And I thought they brought that back in the first half, and we're getting deflections. Jokic had 6 turnovers in the full game and couldn't really get into any sort of a rhythm. And I most teams can't pull that off without sacrificing. You think about, well, if you're bringing somebody else or you're doing other stuff, then Jokic is such an unbelievable decision maker, but the Thunder are able to, to use your phrasing, have their cake and eat it too in a couple of different ways. And I thought it worked a lot better overall in the first half of game 2.
Yeah, they just had, especially when you had to lob it up to Nikola Jokic, they made his catches more difficult. They made it so you couldn't directly enter the ball to him. And then one way that they're able to take advantage of the Nuggets' bad spacing, the other being just letting Christian Braun brick wide open threes in the corner early on, was as the pass has to kind of get lobbed to him, like you can't throw a direct pass because there's maybe a 3-quarter front. Someone like Alex Caruso or Cason Wallace would just run up behind Jokic because whoever is out there, A, they're not worried about him shooting a 3, and B, they're usually standing pretty close to Jokic, would just come up behind and knock the ball away as Jokic was catching. I think they got like 3 steals like that in the first half. They got to the foul line endlessly. That was just an example of how the Nuggets were just totally out of position so many times. The Nuggets committed 29 fouls in this game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points, 11 to 13 from the field, only took 2 threes, which I thought was important. Not that he was being defended well enough to make him shoot a 3, and then 11 of 11 from the foul line. So that's 34 points on 18 shooting possessions, and also had 8 assists, 2 turnovers, and a best ever mark in a playoff game, which has been tracked since 1998, plus 51 in 30 minutes.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, and one of the other things, like they're up 45 to 21 at the end of the first. And they hadn't even brought in Alex Caruso yet.
Yeah. Yeah, when he checked in, I'm like, wait, he hasn't been in yet? And then
he only had to play 10 minutes.
Yeah. And by the way, just so we have it out there, so Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had, to phrase it differently, the Thunder had a plus 82.3 net rating when he was on the floor in 30 minutes of action in this game. That is, so it was they had a 169.4 offensive rating and 87.1 defensive rating, almost doubled up. Not quite, almost.
Yeah, 45, 42, and 37 points in the first 3 quarters. So it's definitely the Nuggets tried to get Jamal Murray going early. That didn't really work. Jokic hit a couple of jumpers over Hartenstein. It still kills me how Hartenstein just like doesn't get close enough to him to contest his jumper. And because like, is Jokic just going to blow by you? Like that's your concern?
And if he does, then there'll be a bunch of sharks trying to get that ball too.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Cason Wallace was awesome. He showed off a interesting pick and pop 3-pointer. David Adelman didn't help matters by going to DeAndre Jordan against a 5-out lineup. I'm not sure why he decided to do that, particularly because I thought it worked semi-okay. I mean, the non-Jokic minutes are never going to be good, but I think you should have just gone Gordon and Watson there.
I cracked up because DeAndre Jordan did get an alley-oop like immediately after he went in, but then the rest of it didn't go super well. Back to Cason
Yeah, they
Wallace.
ran a really nice play to get him that, and then that was, I think, the only time he jumped when he was in the game.
The other thing,
he played 2 minutes and was -3.
The other thing that Cason Wallace, there was a play where the Nuggets actually got back in transition, and all of a sudden he's just passed all of them and got away. It was incredible. Like he just put on like the afterburners and got through. It was the athleticism that he could display at different moments.
And the Nuggets were driving a World War I biplane on that one. Like that. Yeah, I mean Jokic, when he doesn't have it, and particularly defensively, it can get bad real fast. He was terrible defensively in this game. They also tried the 1-2-2 zone, which they were down by so much. I was like, why is David Adelman even doing this? Why doesn't he just why give them more reps against the zone? As it turned out, the Thunder were totally ready. They were setting a bunch of flare screens for the corner man on Jokic. He wasn't going to get through that. They got a ton of wide open corner threes. I don't know. I don't really have much else from this one. Do you?
I have one other wild stat from Queen the Glass. The Denver Nuggets did not score off a live rebound in the entire game.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that just shows that the lack of impetus that they had. Also, the lack of stops. So a couple other things that I can note in this one. Lou Dort versus Jokic has been pretty hilarious. And those guys, I don't know if they're going to get into it, but there are a couple of instances each game. This is kind of why I would think more seriously about putting Dort on Jokic at some point in the series. Is just he's going to just fight with Jokic all the time. Might pick up a few fouls, might pick up a foul on Jokic, but he's just going to piss Jokic off and just make it difficult for him to catch the ball. But Jokic's off-ball flopping versus Dort's off-ball flopping is just, it's masterpiece theater every single time.
I think that's all.
Yeah, I don't really have much else.
No.
What would you think of starting Westbrook in game 3? Porter Jr. struggled again, 2 for 8 from 3, -25, and he didn't have the wrap on his shoulder, but just hasn't been hitting shots or doing much else.
I think I would save that for game 4 if things aren't going well. But I like Westbrook kind of bringing a different energy off the bench. Maybe if
I
there's,
agree with you.
I think he's better suited for that role, and you could still find spots for Michael Porter Jr. Anyway. I think that's what I would do. I mean, another victory of sorts for Mark Daigneault is that they had this dominant, highest scoring first half in NBA playoff history. He still played 10 guys. It wasn't like that really narrowed their rotation. Yeah. He's still doing it now. I think there can be an opponent down the line. We'll see who comes out of the East. That could potentially challenge that. But part of the theory with OKC, it's come up. I brought it up in the playoffs, is that it appears to me that Mark Daigneault doesn't think that his 4th best guy or 5th best guy is significantly better than his 9th best player. And if that's true, then going this deep that often makes everyone better because they can be more rested and everything else. I don't know whether that's right, but I do respect his commitment to it because I think with him, it's more plausible than it is like with Kerr, where there are times where it's like Guy Santos is out there and all this type of stuff. Like, to me, that is more indulgent than what Daigneault is doing.
Yeah, and to that point, Aaron Wiggins is a really good offensive player. He had a couple of awesome steals in the first. I guess he was only credited with one. I thought he had another deflection or something. But and he's a good offensive player. Like, he'll hit threes. In the Dallas series, he couldn't exist because he would just get hunted by Kyrie or Luka and couldn't stay in front of them. But there isn't really that sort of a matchup for him. And Denver is also not as ruthless about going after someone like him. Although I would think about it whenever he's out there because he's not a very good individual defender. And Isaiah Joe kind of falls into that category as well. And he is just someone who totally changes the Thunder offense when he's out there. He had 14 points on 5 shooting possessions in this game. And Chet Holmgren, I thought, was awesome on defense. 2 steals, 2 blocks. He had this sequence. I think both of his blocks came simultaneously
on the same play
against Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, Chet somehow was in front of Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon fully extended his arm to try to shoot a little hook or something over Holmgren. And Holmgren's arms were so long that he was able to reach over Gordon's body and cleanly block the ball out of Gordon's hands while Gordon had fully extended his arm. It was just a ridiculous block. All right, let's get to the meat of the matter here. Interested to see what y'all have to say in the comments on this as well. We are going to rank all of these awesome comebacks that have happened in these NBA playoffs. Honorable mention, not in the top 6, would be actually the largest halftime comeback in NBA playoff history. Isn't even going to be among the top 6 of these. That is the Thunder coming back from a 29-point deficit in the first half, but they are so much better than Memphis, and Ja got hurt, and Memphis was never going to win the series, so just not enough of a heartbreak. And the Thunder defense was so good, it was like once they turned it up, they were just going to win that game. It felt, even when that deficit occurred, you're like, yeah, they probably have like a 40% chance of winning this thing, even though they're down 26. So honorable mention to that one. Take us through, Danny, each of these 6 games and the win probability at the highest point per unpredictable for each of these teams.
So I'll note at the outset that I did this, I in part to make it easier to figure out the point. I did it with the making it 50-50 as opposed to using the team things. Because if you do it with the the talent estimated, because the way that some of these games went, it gets even more ridiculous. So I'm going to give you, Nate. Do you want it to go in chronological order, or do you want to go in terms of the some sort of order in terms of the unpredictable stuff?
I will allow you to choose it.
Okay, so let's go from oldest to newest. So I put in 2 that weren't from this round just because they were close in chronological time and also very memorable. So Indiana, Milwaukee game 5. The furthest point there, Milwaukee had a 99.7% chance of winning with when they were up 6. They were up 6 with 40 seconds to go, and Neesmith fouled, I believe that was AJ Green.
Yes.
And so
yeah,
Green
and
has
then
the
AJ
chance
Green made the first, but
missed the second.
yeah. So after,
And
I mean, so they probably had even a higher. Maybe that event isn't logged, but after
it
he
isn't
made
logged.
the first, it was actually higher than
Yeah.
that.
It might have
I
gone to
think that one,
99.8.
yeah. Now, so our criteria here, certainly we will give points for just blowing it within the game and how bad it was. And so there's a number of criteria we can go through. There's just the raw chance of winning that you've blown. There's how terrible the individual plays were to blow it, or how great they were by the opposing team, right? This is a two-way street. Then you have also just the magnitude of it within the series, within the arc of the franchise, just like how much it hurts for that team. So we'll keep all those in mind as we go through before we rank them. So yeah, maybe actually let's just go through all of these
Sure.
in order. Now that I think about it. That's probably better. So that one, remember the stat came out that there had only been one game in NBA playoff history where a team had a 7-point lead in the last minute and lost. And never had a team had a 7-point lead with as little time remaining. I think it was like 45 seconds in that OKC Clippers game 5. That one was in the second round. It had Chris Paul both fouling a 3-point shooter and turning it over, trying to draw a 3-shot foul on an intentional foul in the backcourt.
It was incredible.
So I don't think, would you agree with me that none of the blunders in any of these games lives up to that type of a level?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
And there were some
especially like an all-time player who's like known for hating mistakes, and that was a feeling like they could have won that series. It was the Clippers, they're cursed. It was the Donald Sterling year that that was easily their best chance because I think that was their best team. That was probably their best chance to get to the finals. The next year, of course, they would blow the 3-1 lead and the Josh Smith Corey Brewer game 6, but I don't think that team was quite as good as the 14 team. So how would you say, just in terms of like your overall heartbreak level for the Bucks in that game?
In that game, especially because there were 2 collapses, I would
Yeah,
say
they were up 4 with under a minute left, or maybe it was slightly more than a minute in regulation.
So I would say single game silo, very, very high, but big picture, very low, just because Lillard was already out. They were just kind of playing out the string. We didn't even know, like even if it had gone 6, I didn't think it was going to change the whole thing with the series. So big picture, small picture, big.
I mean, there was just this feeling of like, fuck, now this, like obviously
Sure.
the true death knell had happened with the Lillard injury in the previous game. But then to go through this and then to be put out of your misery by 2 Tyrese Halliburton go-ahead scores at the end of regulation, or I think what might have tied it at the end
One
of
tied it,
regulation.
yeah.
And then the layup blowing by your franchise player who might be playing his last game for the team. And the other team's star, who everyone was chanting overrated at. But they're already down 3-1 there as well. But I would say still, in terms of the individual game collapse, that one was the worst. That was one that felt truly unbelievable to me, especially like Gary Buckner Jr. losing the ball between his legs. And then also how fast it happened too, because like there weren't timeouts, right? It just, oh shit, he just lost a bound. Oh shit, Tyrese Haliburton is inbound again. Oh shit, he just blew by Giannis for a layup and the game is over. Oh shit, John Halliburton, it's like getting into a fight with Giannis after the game. It's over. It's like completely over.
Yeah, it was the most surreal. I would say that's completely fair. Next up chronologically, the only other one from the first round that I included was Knicks Pistons Game 6. That only got as high as 94.8 when the Hardaway made that jumper to put them up 7 with 2.5 to go. And so that one to me, I think it's probably the weakest on the list, but I did want to include it, especially because it adds to the New York ledger, which is now 3 in this last basically week.
Yeah, and I do think that we noted it, right? That you said that's the lowest one, and it's 94.8 is things that are happening with 5% probability, 4%, 0.3% probability.
Oh, we've got one lower than 0.3.
Yeah. Those numbers are just wrong at this point. I don't know. Something has changed about basketball recently. Maybe, honestly, it's the defensive strategy that's like so worried. Actually, you know what? I think this is part of it too. Fewer available timeouts at the end of games, right? When did they make that change? Like 5-6 years ago that you couldn't bring timeouts, more than 2 timeouts under 3. There used to just be so many timeouts. You can't get the ball in bounds, I have timeout. Can't get in bounds, timeout again. Advance the ball, go ahead. Like, you would have 3-4 timeouts for each team down the end, and it would take forever. That's why they made that change. And so now it's like shit could just spiral fast. And if you can't get the ball in bounds, like you're just much more likely to turn it over. And also because they're less likely to take timeouts as well, because you only have 2, you're trying to hoard them. If you're the leading team. So maybe that's a part of the change. Maybe part of it is that teams have gotten to like, okay, we can't give up a 3, can't give up 3. And then you're just giving up incredibly easy 2s in like 3 seconds. I'm like, maybe taking time off the clock should be a little bit more of a priority defensively. Instead of just never give up a 3, never give up a 3. It's like, no, let's switch everything, keep everything in front. If they want to take a really difficult contested 3, fine. Or maybe, if we're up 7, let's just play our normal health principles. And yeah, we'll give up a 3, but we're going to make you use 15 seconds to get it. So I don't know. That's an interesting thing to ponder, is just what is making it so that these comebacks are clearly more probable than in the past. Like I'm going to do the math on this. I don't really have the ability to do it, but the fact that this many ostensibly, and like that data is based on historical data. Like that's what it is. And the fact that it's team agnostic too, that the Pacers are involved in a lot of these, the Knicks have been involved in a lot of these, like that. Maybe that makes it, there's something about those teams that makes them more likely able to come back. But clearly all of these supposedly totally unlikely events happening means, I would say, that you have to conclude that the numbers are wrong and there's more of a chance of coming back, which, by the way, is awesome.
It's pretty damn fun. Yeah, and every other one that we're going to talk about happened in the last few days. So Knicks Celtics Game 1.
So New York Detroit Game 6. Yeah, I mean that one. Detroit only scored 1 point. The rest of the way it was an 8-1. A 9-1 run, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was
Because
no,
Brunson
it was
hit a
more than
3.
that. Yeah,
Because
Brunson hit
it
the
was
3
12.
against Asar Thompson, your best defender. You got eliminated from the playoffs after you also had the game 4 where Hardaway should have got fouled and should have won the game for you, and every game has been close. So that definitely hurt. But Detroit's first visit to the playoffs, like if they'd had to play Boston, they would have got smoked. So it's not like a franchise changing thing. That still would have only got to a game 7. What's the next one?
Knicks Celtics Game 1. The only one on this list where the highest probability point was not in the fourth quarter, was in the third. Derek White hit a 3 to put the Celtics up 20 about halfway through the third. That had an unpredictable win probability of 96.8%.
Yeah, what happened in that one again? I'm getting these 2 games that were exact carbon copies of each other confused.
Well, I mean, the Celtics missed a bunch of threes. Their offensive process was bad, and the Knicks were able to score enough to win.
Oh, that distinguishes it. Oh, good. All right, thank God.
Oh,
now I remember it perfectly.
This one
totally different from game 2.
This one occurred on Monday, and the other one occurred on Wednesday.
Oh man.
Oh, at least one of the teams didn't wear gray jerseys.
So, yeah, the Celtics were 15. The Celtics setting the record for most missed threes and most threes attempted in the playoffs. That's not too great. 18 assists on 34 field goals, not too great. Both your stars really struggling. Not too great. Jalen Brunson killing you at the end, not too great. It did go into overtime at least. So they managed to not lose in regulation on this comeback. Oh, Mikal Bridges stealing it from one of your all-stars as you attempt to get the game-winning shot up. No, don't even get a shot up or the game-tying shot up. That was kind of the same thing too. I mean, game 2 is worse because game 1 had happened.
Well, and game 2, just we could just talk about that now. The 13 straight missed shots. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Also, the terrible Drew Holiday defense and foul, that's got to really hurt for Boston as well. Because yeah, I mean, game 1 you could just dismiss as an aberration, 15-60. It's amazing that they shot exactly 25% from 3 in both games.
So then the next one up is OKC Denver Game 1. Oh yeah, you know that one. So OKC, the high point there was 97.6 when they were up 9 with 2:40 to go. I think Shea fouled Jokic, and Jokic ended up making, I believe, both of those free throws. So then that knocked the number down.
Yeah, that one. And to give up the two missed free throws at the end by Holmgren.
The terrible fouling timing.
Having your 3-shot fouling go wrong, and then to not be able to match up in transition when you're this great transition defense. I mean, this is one of, I would say, up there for like one of the best wins by Denver, particularly because neither Murray nor Jokic even touched the ball in the last play, and Russell Westbrook gets the game-winning assist going back to OKC. But I would put this a little bit lower because it was still a game 1. You're still a great team. Like in game, definitely very surprising, and to see like Shea not really be able to get it going, that was difficult too. But Denver's a great clutch team. Like you still come out of the series feeling pretty decent, or out of that game feeling pretty decent, and of course they had something to feel pretty decent about today.
And hilariously, because we already did both New York Boston games, we're ending with what is my number 1, which is Indiana Cleveland Game 2. Not just because the 99.8% unpredictable is the highest. It's because of the context, and because one of the games that isn't on this list was Game 1 of Indiana Cleveland, because it wasn't comeback, it wasn't anything like that. And so Cleveland to be without 3 key players, including Evan Mobley, I think their most indispensable player, to have the lead that they had and then blow it so quickly, so spectacularly, up 7 with 48 seconds to go after Siakam missed a free throw. That, and remember, they have the ball. They have the ball.
Well,
up
they
7.
should have had the ball.
Yeah, they should have had
with
the ball.
48 seconds left, but
they turned it over.
Aaron Nesmith went in for a tip dunk. You also throw in the terrible refereeing of the lane violations. This is actually as good a time to talk about this as any. The last 2-minute report came out today, and the way the league characterized it as, for the first one, was multiple players went past, lane violated and went past the 3-point line. Incorrect call. No, that is not how you characterize it. That may technically be true. Yes, Donovan Mitchell did go inside the 3-point line after Aaron Nesmith had taken 2 steps before Pascal Siakam had even released the ball. And yeah, probably everyone along the lane line was lane violating because that's what happens in every play. But Aaron Nesmith is the guy who sprinted ahead of everyone and got a tip dunk and probably should have got fouled. But like that is a pretty weak way to characterize it. Oh, well, everyone lane violated. Yeah, we guess we missed it again. Gosh, silly us, but it didn't cause anything. Everyone did it. No, that's ridiculous. And then same thing again. They at least acknowledged that the shooter lane violated on the Haliburton one. And I will say that Jerome still could have boxed him out even so. But Haliburton knew it was short and he stepped in early. Like, that's what always happens. That's why they don't let you do that, because it's the job of that guy to run in for the 3-point line and box out the shooter. Like, so if the guy could just go over the line whenever he wants to, that job would become impossible. And you would have to change the rules to let him put another guy on the lane line, which the NBA doesn't do. So yeah, that is that was pretty bad. Like, yes, obviously they had to say that there was a lane violation, but I'm really surprised that this isn't a bigger national topic than it's been, even by tweet about it. Like, I can never tell which of these tweets are going to get traction in this day and age, but I like posted screenshots of both of them, and I was like, the NBA really needs to do better. And nobody really seemed to respond to it at all. But that I think that's pretty serious. But anyway, so you've got that aspect. You've got the aspect of not getting a single shot up at the end. You've got the aspect that it happened to a team that had already done it. That's what makes it even more awesome from the Pacers standpoint, is they just did the exact same formula that they did against the Milwaukee Bucks. And we talked about it yesterday, how there are all these things that they do, just nailing the details in these circumstances that just make it like you can't get the ball in bounds against someone. You have, especially if you have one of these under athletic teams. For the Cavs too, Donovan Mitchell just not even being able to move, committing an offensive foul with his elbow due to the pressure, then not being able to get the defensive rebound on Haliburton's miss was another aspect. And then Ty Jerome getting his ankles broken. Because they were still up two. That was the biggest thing at the very end. Obviously the Thunder were still up 1 in there.
Well, and to lose in regulation as well. Like, they didn't even
that was incredible, yeah.
So Indiana Cleveland game 2 is my top pick. I think I want to go New York Boston game 2 as my number 2.
Yeah, going down, because especially when you're a championship favorite, going down 0-2, I still have some confidence that they can come back and win, but the odds historically, interestingly enough, since we're on the subject, home team losing the first 2 at home actually has a higher win percentage than road team losing the first 2, because the home team is theoretically better than that road team, even if they did happen to lose 2 at home. I mean, that's the biggest reason, obviously, because you would think, oh, well, still the road team in the series has 3 home games. The other team only has 2. It's so much easier to come back. Well, but yeah, you're nowhere near as good as them. And there's an indicator of just the first 2 being won at home that's the case. But that's why it's 85%. Also, much smaller sample of teams losing the first two at home and trying to come back. But 85% win percentage for New York, a team in New York situation. And then you consider also that I think most people would still call the Celtics a significantly better team overall, even if they, of course, have blown it the last two games. So what would you put the win percentage on for the Celtics right now in the series?
Ooh.
I would say 35%. Maybe even higher. If I had to figure anything out.
I feel kind of crazy for doing it. I think I'm gonna go 40.
We'll see. I mean, they could just lose game 3 and
Yeah.
then yeah. And like you were saying, they had a pretty easy run last year, and like the Nuggets, they didn't get out of the second round last year. We'll see what happens this year. And the Bucks obviously haven't gotten past the second round since they won the championship, a pretty easy championship. And so, yeah, flags fly forever. You were the best team that year. No one would dispute that about the Celtics because their guys didn't get hurt. But what would happen if they went up against the Nuggets last year or some of the other teams? And yeah, they are, and also like they're just not playing as well as they were last year.
No, they're not. I think I'm gonna still, even though I know it's not as important a game in the macro sense, I'm gonna go Bucks Pacers game 5 as my number 3, just because the sheer magnitude of the collapse.
I gotta go number 2 there.
Okay.
It just is so depressing. It's like you got your dog run over one day in game 4, and then they ran over your cat the next day, and you're just like, Jesus, like I didn't think something else could make me feel anything worse than this feels. And then it happens in the next game.
Yeah, I have it lower than the Celtics game too, because
yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, just because like the Celtics might win a championship, the Bucks were never going to win a championship. Like that era was over. Realistically, it was over before the playoffs even began.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go, but I'll go that 3. 4. I'm gonna go OKC Denver over game 1 over New York Boston game 1
I agree.
because some of the mistakes, like the fouling and all of that, like and I also, it's because in some ways, like we even saw it with the games on Wednesday, like OKC is a better team, like they that it could have been cleaner.
Yeah,
all
I
that
wouldn't say that the Celtics just got outplayed over a long period of time in game 1. Like there aren't like GOAT moments that will.
Yeah. Whereas the fouls, the missed free throws for Chet, there are a number of different things with OKC Denver that linger.
Yeah, and then I think like Knicks Detroit is probably last in game 6. Which one are we missing? Did we get them all? We got them all.
That's all of them.
Okay. Got a little news here. Talked about the last minute report. Did we talk about Executive of the Year at all yet?
We did not. We got asked about it in a chat, so that's I think why we thought we talked about it. So Sam Presti won Executive of the Year. He did only get 10 of the 30 first place votes. Remember, the executives vote on this. It's not voted by the media members, which I think helps explain some of the results. He got first. Kobe Altman got second. Trajan Langdon got third. That order is totally reasonable, though I think I had Altman second in mind. It's just that the person who you and I both picked as number 1, Rob Pelinka, wasn't even in the top 5. And there were a couple of different explanations for how that could be the case. One of them, but I mean, Rob Pelinka getting Luka Doncic for what for what they gave up, even with all the other flaws during this grading period, he's still clearly number 1.
Yeah, I don't know if there were even that many flaws other than the Mark Williams thing, but he also hired JJ Redick. Worked out a little better than Dan Hurley would have, I would say. And I think some of this is just sour grapes. I mean, particularly when you're talking about setting your franchise up for so long beyond the time. I still have no problem with Presti being number 1. I know it's supposed to be a one-season award. He did a lot this season, as we talked about Hartenstein and Caruso with their cap space being aggressive, and then the Giddey for Caruso trade was really good for them. But also, he deserves a ton of, like, this is the first Executive of the Year award that he's won. And I actually think in some ways, since it's a one-season award, it's almost a testament to how good he is, because he doesn't take a one-season approach. He probably should start doing that now relatively soon. But yeah, you know what? He wasn't going to get he should have got Executive of the Year for that Kawhi trade. There are other moments we've had him ranked very high for just some of those, getting assets for guys coming and going and all that stuff. Sorry, not the Kawhi trade, the PG trade, but that allowed them to get Kawhi. So yeah, I like no problem with Presti winning. Altman, your guy, was number 2. I didn't think that they did enough, although you made the good point that was, and he didn't make any errors of commission by moving on from some of his players. I also, the fact that I think it was Atkinson was more of a Dan Gilbert hire based on the reporting kind of lowers his grade a little bit. But yeah, Pelinka not winning it or even getting more than one vote is ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, I don't think Pelinka is that great, but he did a great job of capitalizing. And yes, he had this relationship with Nico. It fell into his lap. Yeah, but then isn't that what being a GM isn't? Isn't that why these guys get hired? Because they have great relationships around the league. They can conduct business, and then to not fuck it up. And also, by the way, he didn't even have to give up very much.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you are on the positive end of what is considered the worst trade in NBA history. You had to have done something. I know all these guys are going to say star grades, Lakers, and yeah, the fact that they're the Lakers and they're willing to just roll the dice on Luka agreeing to re-sign there certainly helped matters. And that's why I keep saying the whole, like, oh yeah, they should have shopped him thing is a little bit overblown, because there really weren't going to be that many suitors in the end. Maybe you forced the Lakers to pay up a little bit more, but and then also that he could have gotten into it if it had gotten out and controlled the process of where he's going to go and reduce the value. Let's see here. We've got Will Hardy getting a 6-year extension. I'm sure it's pure coincidence that Mitch Johnson was announced as a Spurs permanent coach a few days before this happened. And obviously that's the order, right? That this would have occurred. Anyway, can't prove that, but it is interesting that these happen within 3 days of one another. And it's also a 6-year extension. I don't know when it would be from exactly. Monty Williams did get an 8-year contract with team options in years 6 and 7. Will Hardy already had a 5-year deal before. They picked up his 5th-year option, I think, after year 1. And he had 2 years left on that. So is this 6 years on top of the 2 that was already there? Or is it 6 years total? We'll never find out.
I'm guessing it's reported kind of like how some of the extensions are reported, where they count the years that are still remaining. I'm guessing it's something like that. We don't know for sure.
In addition to bringing in B.J. Armstrong, which we talked about earlier today, Mike Woodson will be associate head coach for the Kings under Doug Christie. He was coach at Indiana University the last 4 years. So, yeah, he's probably got his thumb firmly on the pulse of what's going on in today's NBA, to be the lead assistant for the experienced Doug Christie. What a shit show this is becoming in Sacramento right now. And all right, is that it? I think that's all we got.
I think it is.
All right, then. Thanks so much for joining us on Playback. Also want to tell y'all that we still have a few codes left for our Aaron Gordon buzzer beater flash sale edition 2. Gordon Game 1 is the code this time, and you still get that 45% off. There's 50 of them out there. Well, more than half of them are gone now, but you can go ahead and grab one. hopefully they will not be gone by the time you listen to this, but I will let everyone know on social media or next time we record a public show if in fact they are gone. So give yourself a chance there. If you've been waiting to sign up for Dunc'd On Prime, you can get 45% off a year membership. That's only for a year membership, not a month membership, year membership. So go ahead and check that out. Of course, the link to that is in the show notes. See if we got anything to clean up here. Dougie says, do you feel better about turning the series around? Boston or Cleveland? Definitely Boston, just due to the Cleveland injury issues. Now, there are 2 days off in that series. Maybe that was part of the calculation in Garland and Mobley not playing in game 2, but they also lost game 1. They probably thought it was pretty important to win that one. And speaking of Neesmith, he's really ascending. What do you think? Always been behind him. Yeah, I mean, I never thought he had this level of defense coming out of school. That wasn't his MO in theory, but he's really athletic. He plays hard. He's kind of fixed the fouling problem, which was huge. And let's see. Good Jalen Williams minutes. Yeah, that was true. Jay Will came in to give more of a too big look, and that was planned too. He just replaced Hartenstein in the early going. And Daigneault was just running guys in and out constantly. I think that was part of it too, is just to change up the looks. He put J-Dub on Jokic and Caruso on him, just totally different looks all the time. Yeah, okay. I think let's get rolling here. Yeah, actually, a couple notes too in the comments that the series is a pick 'em right now, Boston and New York.
So Vegas is, or they're more Celtics optimistic than we are, but they're going at a different pin in certain ways.
Yeah, that's true. Celtics brand versus Knicks brand not being very good. Okay, thanks so much for joining us, and we will do a show tomorrow. Probably a light one though. Might even take tomorrow off potentially, depending on what happens in that one game night, Golden State versus Minnesota. If Minnesota blows them out, we might just not talk about it until Friday.